It's a classic story. What happens when one of the biggest tech companies in the world rolls out its grand vision for the future, and its users, almost in unison, just say, nope, not interested? Well, that's exactly what's happening right now with Microsoft, its users, and the ongoing battle for the soul of the PC.
It all started with this one sentence, just a single post on X from Pavan Davaluri, the new president of Windows. Now, this was meant to be a huge, bold statement about the future, but what Microsoft probably didn't see coming was that this one little sentence would ignite an absolute firestorm online.
All right, so let's talk about that word agentic. What does that even mean? I mean, it sounds like some heavy corporate jargon, and, well, yeah, it kind of is. But what Microsoft is actually dreaming up here is pretty ambitious, for sure.
So, an agentic OS. In plain English, it's an operating system that's trying to think for you, to always be one step ahead. The whole idea is to hook everything together, your computer, the cloud, all your data, and then use AI to proactively help you out. Imagine you're researching a trip, and Windows just automatically organizes your notes for you. Or maybe it preps a summary of a project from your open documents right before a big meeting, all without you even asking. It's basically like having a digital assistant running your entire computer.
And look, to be fair, this was supposed to be a good thing. I mean, in a world where Google's injecting AI into everything and Apple's ecosystem just works, Microsoft has to prove that Windows is still on the cutting edge. This whole agentic idea, that's their big bet on an AI-powered future. But that is not how people took it. Not at all.
The reaction from users was, wow, it was fast, it was harsh, and it was overwhelmingly negative. The internet, as it tends to do, had some very different ideas about where Windows should be heading. And this is pretty much how it started. No long debates, no nuanced arguments, just pure unfiltered rejection. Comments just like this one completely flooded the post, showing this immediate, almost gut-level pushback against Microsoft's vision. But it wasn't just raw anger. People started getting really specific about what they do want. And guess what? It was the total opposite of an agentic OS. They were literally asking for a return to simplicity, a clean interface, an operating system that, as they put it, was pure performing, with none of the extra bloatware or ads.
And this one hits hard because it shows the real-world consequences. We're not just talking about angry comments online anymore. This new direction is actively pushing away Microsoft's most loyal, long-term customers. I mean, think about it. People who have been using Windows for over 40 years are now walking away. The backlash just kept growing, and it got so intense, so widespread that Microsoft eventually just disabled the comments on the post altogether. When a company has to literally silence the feedback, it tells you everything you need to know about the message they were getting.
So what is all this backlash really telling us? Well, it's shining a huge, blinding spotlight on this fundamental disconnect between what Microsoft is building and what a massive chunk of its user base is actually asking for.
And right here, you can see the two visions laid out side by side. On one hand, Microsoft is all in on this AI-driven, cloud-connected, agentic future. But on the other hand, you have users who are practically screaming for the opposite. A fast, clean OS with no bloat, no ads, and one that puts them back in the driver's seat. These aren't just slightly different feature requests. We're talking about two completely different philosophies of what a computer should even be.
And we really have to get this. This explosion of frustration didn't just appear out of thin air. This one post about an agentic OS, it was just the spark. The fire, well, that's been simmering under the surface for years now.
Which leads us right to the million-dollar question in this whole mess. When you look at all the evidence, you just have to ask, is Microsoft fundamentally out of touch with the very people who use its products every single day?
For years now, these complaints have just been getting louder and louder. Users feel like features, like Copilot, are being shoved down their throats. They're seeing more and more ads and pop-ups inside the operating system itself. And a lot of them feel like all these extras are making Windows feel bloated and slow, pushing them to seriously consider alternatives like macOS or even Linux for the first time.
One user pointed out a pattern that really fuels this distrust, listing this graveyard of abandoned Microsoft products. This creates this real fear that Microsoft will chase this new agentic dream, fail, and end up damaging the core Windows experience in the process, just like they've done with other products people once loved.
So, where does this all leave us? As we look ahead, it really feels like Windows, and by extension Microsoft, is standing at a major crossroads. There are two very, very different paths they can take from here. At its core, this whole thing can be boiled down to a pretty simple philosophical choice.
Microsoft wants to build an OS that works for you, one that anticipates your needs. But millions of users are yelling back that they just want an OS that works how they tell it to, a powerful, reliable tool that just does its job and gets out of the way.
When you strip away all the corporate speak and the angry comments, this entire conflict, this clash of vision versus reality, it all comes down to one single critical question about the future.
Is Microsoft going to listen to this massive wave of feedback and evolve Windows with its users, building the product they're clearly asking for? Or is it going to push ahead with its own vision and risk evolving without them? The answer, whatever it is going to shape the future of the personal computer as we know it.